Blaming yourself too much will destroy your confidence. Blaming yourself too little destroys your growth. But then what should we do? Well, maybe blame isn't the right answer. It's something else. Have you ever walked away from a situation where you told yourself, oh, I just can't do it, or I'm not good enough, or on the other side, they never gave me a chance. But you leave the situation not really having learned something, only just leaving with a bruised ego. I've been there multiple times, actually. But I want you to consider that maybe it's about the way you frame things. In previous videos, I talked about explanatory styles, but I also want to provide another view, which is looking at balance. On the one hand, it is better not to give yourself explanations for situations that internalize a character flaw. So basically saying that maybe you're not good enough, or you'll never be cut out for this industry, or they never, or the other extreme where they never give people like you a chance and there's no point trying, because all of those are defeatist. They put you in a position where you are not positioned to succeed. And I want to get you out of that. I want you to be in a position where you feel empowered, where you feel like you have agency. So moving away from what some people might call even a victim mentality. That might seem quite strong, but what I want you to move into, away from victim mentality to agency mentality. And in this sort of mentality, it means you are in control. Even when things happen that feel like they're not your fault, even when things happen that really aren't your fault or are other people's fault, the idea is not to lean to any extreme of either blaming yourself too much or not considering the part that you play in that situation, but actually taking agency and saying, okay, what can I do better? What can change going forward? Let me give you a few real life examples to really illustrate this. So going on through school, I generally did well in school. I passed, and oftentimes I would be one of the top in my class. But university was a different ball game, and well, it was all right. I managed to scale through and still did all right. But then I got into the place of work, like the working world, and it felt like my world came crashing down. I haven't told many people about this, but my first year of career was a disaster, complete disaster. I either got made redundant or asked to leave a particular role, or maybe didn't make it past probation for quite a few jobs in my first year. And I just kept thinking, God, I can't be that bad. There are people who are less skilled who can hold down a job, and why is this happening to me? Now there I had an option. I could have stayed where I was and just felt like, you know what, I'll just settle for whatever job comes next because, hey, what can I do? Or I may have just lost hope and just told myself, I'm just not gonna bother trying. Whatever job I get to, I'll just keep my head down and just do the barest minimum and keep it moving. But that, lucky for me, was not my personality. Also, I knew that that would not help me in the long run. Yes, there are times that things happen that feel unfair, that you feel beaten down about, but then you don't stay there. So I couldn't stay there. Instead, I did ask myself, okay, what part did I have to play in all of these things? And what were the external factors that took place? I do feel like there were some, prejudicial behaviors that happened in some of the places where I worked. I would say, and this is me looking at the external factors now, I would say that there were some factors that were slightly beyond me, including budget, which then meant that they had more staff that they could handle, and so it was easier to let go of the person who was on probation than anybody else. There are things like that that happened. But on my side, there were also things that I could have done better. For example, I did make mistakes, sometimes costly mistakes, in terms of the work that I did when it came to maybe not seeing data clearly or not noticing errors that were made and sending off a report, that sort of thing. And those didn't look good. And you're in a business. Business needs to make money. And so that made me a lot more cautious. It made me check my work over and over again. But at some point, it did tip me over to the other side where I kept checking my work so much that I was then really slow in delivering on work. And I had to, in a sense, redress that and bring myself back. One thing my dad had told me in that period was, Ora, don't let this knock your confidence. Your confidence is one of your greatest assets. And that for me was really helpful. Even though things weren't going so well at that time, those were really helpful. But having that sort of encouragement from family, but also realizing that okay, there's stuff I need to do, and I can't afford to lose hope. If I lose a job, get back on the application route and just keep applying. Sometimes it's a numbers game. You only need one at the end of the day. So I kept pushing, and eventually I got a role that I had learned so much from the previous roles, but by the time I got to this new role, which, by the way, paid more than the previous roles that I had lost, it was so easy. So much so that I was actually finding extra work for myself to do, which actually put me in a good position, and I looked good to my bosses. But beyond that, I was skilled. The jobs that didn't work out as well for me at the time, they didn't work for me, but they worked in me. It's something Myron Golden says: all work works, whether it works on you or for you or in you, all work works. And that was my experience with that. But if I had let myself, wallow in self-pity, if I had let myself get to a point where I just gave up and didn't try, I wouldn't be where I am today. Now I no longer do that type of role that I used to do before. Now I do voiceovers. I run my own business, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. But again, the same principles apply. When I audition for a role and I don't get it, what do I tell myself? Is it a case where I tell myself, oh, I'm not good enough? Or is it a case where I look at, okay, where I could improve? Maybe I could have given more takes to the person who was listening to the audition so that they would know the different styles I could give? Or was it a case where there were many great applicants and somebody else got picked, and that's okay too? In all, the idea I'm trying to let you realize is that balance is key. Don't blame yourself too much for things such that you internalize things not going well for you, but also don't blame yourself too little. In a sense, don't completely shift responsibility to external factors without looking at the part that you had to play in it. Because when you are able to look at things from a balanced point of view, you can then see ways of improving and for you to keep getting better. The idea is, as Myron Golden says, which is something that just keeps ringing in my head over and over again, all work works, whether it works in you or whether it works for you. It's working. So you just got to keep working it, basically, is what I would say with that. So whenever you're faced with a situation that doesn't go quite your way, ask yourself, what could I do better? And what are the situations around that didn't quite go my way? And is there anything I can do to change that for next time? I hope that makes sense. Hope this video was useful to you. Let me know in the comments if you've ever faced a situation like this, or maybe like the story I shared with you, and if it's something that you feel, okay, maybe you could have dealt with differently, or maybe you did deal with it in a good way and it had a great outcome. Please share in the comments. I'm sure other people will benefit from learning from your story as well. But beyond that, share this video with somebody who it could be helpful to. I'm looking to really just help people along their journeys, help them with the right mindset, as I also help with developing skill sets such that when setbacks come, they're able to rise above those setbacks and keep moving and keep being resilient. It doesn't matter who you look at, who got to the apex of their career or their craft. As I mentioned in the previous video, everybody faces challenges. Challenges are a part of life. They're not something that you can always avoid. Sometimes you have to embrace them and think, okay, what can I do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Or what can I do to surmount this challenge? I hope that makes sense. All right, I think we've had enough time together. I will catch you in the next video. Take care.